My daughter called me crying. Her key didn't work. She waited alone in the storm for hours. Then my mom opened the door and said, "You and your mom don't live here anymore." The ER was a battlefield, I swear. 3 trauma cases in 60 minutes. My phone started buzzing against my hip, a frantic vibration that sliced through the bedlam, and my gut just tightened. You know that feeling, right? Because nobody calls me during an ER shift unless something is catastrophically wrong. I tore off my blood-spattered gloves, ducking into the supply closet for a sliver of privacy. Lily's name flashed on the caller ID, and my heart hammered against my ribs. "Honey? What's wrong?" My voice came out a little shaky. Her answer was choked with sobs. "Mom, my key doesn't work anymore." "What do you mean, it doesn't work?" I pressed the phone so hard against my ear, straining to hear her over the hospital announcements that felt like they were screaming. "I put it in and it won't turn." Lily's words tumbled out, ragged and broken. "I'm outside and it's raining really hard and Oscar won't stop crying in his carrier." I closed my eyes, picturing it, my 12-year-old daughter soaking wet on our porch, clutching that cat carrier as the rain poured down. "Where's Grandma? Or Tessa?" I asked, my voice rising. Nobody's answering the door. I can see lights on inside, but nobody comes when I knock. A cold dread, heavier than any I'd felt in the ER, washed over me. "I'll be right there, honey. Go to the side porch where there's more cover." "I'm leaving now." I burst out of the closet, nearly colliding with Dr. Martinez. The ER was a war zone of stretchers and monitors, the constant beeping a cruel soundtrack. "Gianna, we need you in Bay 3. The GSW from the pile-up needs, "My daughter's locked out of the house," I blurted, the words tasting like pure panic. "I have to go." He just stared, blinking. "We're swamped. Can someone else get her?" My reply was a stark, painful truth. There is no one else. The weight of those words hit me, startlingly clear. There never had been. I pushed past him, heading straight for the nurse's station. Supervisor Wheeler was updating charts, her eyes narrowing as I approached. "Nancy, I need to leave. Family emergency." She sighed, a heavy, theatrical sound. "Gianna, we're short 3 nurses already. Can it wait until my father just died, Nancy?" The words landed between us, with the weight of the whole damn earth. She just stared. "Go." The rain was coming down in sheets by the time I pulled into our driveway. Through the smeared windshield wipers, I could just make out Lily's tiny figure, huddled under the side porch overhang. Her hair was plastered to her head, her uniform soaked through. The cat carrier at her feet emitted miserable, desperate yowls. I left the car running and sprinted through the downpour, water soaking through my scrubs in seconds. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Lily collapsed against me, her body shaking. "Why doesn't my key work?" I stroked her wet hair, my mind racing a mile a minute. "I don't know, honey. Let me try mine." We moved to the front door, and I saw it. The curtains shifted, just slightly, in the living room window. Someone was home. My key slid in, just as Lily said, but wouldn't turn. I pounded on the door. "Hello? Marjorie? Tessa? Open up." The door swung open. And there she was. My mother. Marjorie stood in the entryway, wineglass in hand, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. Behind her, my half-sister Tessa leaned against the wall, swirling her own glass of red. "Well," Marjorie took a slow sip, her eyes raking over our drenched figures. "You got here faster than I expected. What's going on?" I demanded, trying to usher Lily inside. "Why aren't our keys working?" Marjorie blocked the doorway, a surprising firmness in her 65-year-old stance. "We've decided you and Lily don't live here anymore." The words. They just didn't make sense. Like they were in some foreign language I didn't speak. "What are you talking about? This is our home." "Not anymore." Tessa stepped forward, a smirk twisting her lips. She pointed toward the street. "Your things are on the curb. What's left of them anyway. The rain's been pretty brutal today." I followed her gesture and my breath caught. Cardboard boxes, dissolving in the downpour. Clothes and books spilling onto the sodden lawn. My medical textbooks. Lily's school projects. Our lives just dissolving in the rain. Oscar let out another pitiful meow from his carrier, his cries cutting through the deluge. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. I looked at Marjorie, at the woman who gave birth to me, who I'd moved back home to help when Dad got sick. I saw nothing familiar in her eyes. Nothing. Understood. My voice came out quiet, but steady. Tessa's eyebrows rose, like she was disappointed by my lack of hysterics. 2 years. 2 years ago, I'd given up my downtown apartment, put my promotion track at the hospital on hold, to move back and care for my terminally ill father. Dr. Peter Reynolds. Respected by everyone, except, apparently, his own wife. I'd fallen into that familiar pattern, stepping in when everyone else stepped back. Working 14-hour ER shifts, then coming home to manage medications, appointments, the whole household, while Marjorie played bridge and Tessa only visited when it suited her. You've always been the strong one, Gianna. I'd made an unspoken promise to hold our family together after his death. I just hadn't expected to be fighting for survival, quite so literally. Come on, Lily, I said softly, turning away from that horrifying doorway. Let's get our things. We walked back into the rain, toward the soggy boxes on the curb. Lily's shoulders were shaking, but she didn't cry. She was her mother's daughter. I popped the trunk of my Honda CR-V and started gathering what I could salvage. Books with warped pages. Photo albums where colors bled together like watercolors. Lily's science fair ribbon, the ink running down the fabric. Marjorie stepped onto the porch, watching us. Your father spoiled you, she called out, her voice cutting. This was always my house. I noticed the neighbors' faces in their windows across the street, watching the spectacle. Mrs. Donovan, hand over her mouth. The Fishers, whispering behind their curtains. I walked back to the door one last time, rain streaming down my face. We'll be at the residence Inn on 5th, I said calmly, my voice flat. Forward our mail. Lily tugged at my soaked scrub top. But Grandpa's books are still inside, she whispered, her voice breaking for the first time. I squeezed her hand and looked directly into Marjorie's eyes. Trust me, honey, I said. This isn't over. Something flickered across my mother's face. Surprise, maybe? Surprise at not finding the doormat she was used to walking all over. Behind her, Tessa refilled her wine glass, but her hand wasn't quite steady. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Marjorie in the rearview mirror, still standing on the porch. For a moment, I saw what had always been there. Not maternal love, but resentment. Resentment of the bond one shared with my father. A bond she never had. The rain drummed on the roof of the car. Beside me, Lily cradled Oscar's carrier. Ahead of us, uncertainty. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt something unexpected unfurling in my chest. It felt strangely like freedom. The residence Inn room looked like a hurricane aftermath the next day. Soggy cardboard boxes formed islands across the beige carpet. Lily's school uniform draped over the shower rod, still dripping. Oscar huddled beneath the desk, his orange fur matted and damp, refusing to come out. I'd laid out every salvaged possession like artifacts at an archaeological dig, cataloging what survived the rain and what didn't. My nursing textbooks with warped pages. Lily's science project notes bleeding into illegibility. A family photo where my father's face had blurred into a watercolor ghost. Michael Porter's office. A crisp voice answered on the 4th ring. This is Gianna Reynolds, I said, pressing the phone against my ear. I need to speak with Michael immediately. It's about my father's estate. I'm sorry, Miss Reynolds, but Mr. Porter is in court today and... Tell him it's Peter Reynolds' daughter and that Marjorie has locked us out of the house. Silence hung on the line before the receptionist said, Hold please. Michael's voice came through moments later, breathless. Gianna, what's happening? I explained the situation in the clinical, detached way I report patient conditions. Locked doors, changed locks, possessions in the rain. Just the facts. No emotion. That's impossible. Michael interrupted. Gianna, your father transferred the house to you and Lily's trust 6 months ago. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What? Peter put the house in a trust for you and Lily. Marjorie has no legal right to be there, let alone lock you out. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Why wouldn't he tell me? There's a letter with the documents, Michael said quietly. He asked me not to mention it until it became necessary. Lily emerged from the bathroom, her hair wrapped in a hotel towel. She watched me with eyes too old for her 12 years. I'm coming to your office, I told Michael. Now. An hour later, I was staring at legal documents spread across Michael's mahogany desk. Property transfer forms. Trust agreements. All signed, notarized, and filed with the county. Your father was very thorough, Michael said, sliding a sealed envelope toward me. He wanted you to have this if something like this happened. The envelope bore my name and my father's distinctive doctor's scrawl. I broke the seal and unfolded a single page. My dearest Gianna, if you're reading this, then Marjorie has done exactly what I feared she might. The house is yours and Lily's now. It always was, in my heart. Marjorie has never appreciated what she has, not the home, not you, and certainly not me. I've watched her resentment grow over the years, especially toward you. You returned home when I needed you most, sacrificing everything. You've always been the one who carries others, even when your own shoulders are breaking. Take care of our girl, and the home will take care of you both. All my love, Dad. A single tear landed on the signature, blurring the ink like rain on cardboard. Your father knew this might happen, Michael said quietly. We have everything we need for an emergency injunction. Marjorie and Tessa are there illegally. My phone buzzed with a text from Karen Westfield, our neighbor across the street. They're rearranging furniture and painting your bedroom. Tessa's SUV has been going back and forth all day with more things. Tessa's moved in completely, I told Michael, showing him the text. Within 24 hours of locking us out. Michael's mouth tightened. This was planned well in advance. I need to understand what we're up against, I said, the nurse in me needing a full assessment before treatment. What can they do? Michael hesitated. Marjorie is your mother. She'll use that claim, that you abandoned your father, that you're an unfit mother to Lily. Tessa called me this morning, actually. Said she's concerned about your mental health after your father's death, that you've been erratic. Erratic? I repeated, heat rising in my chest. She mentioned Tessa's husband Ray already has his eye on converting your father's study for the twins. Another text buzzed through from Karen. The boys are jumping on Lily's bed. I can see them through the window. Something shifted inside me. I stood and walked to the window overlooking downtown Austin. My hospital ID badge hung from my neck, the laminated photo showing a woman in scrubs, ready to save lives. I caught my reflection in the glass, eyes hard as river stones, jawline set. I save strangers every day, I whispered. It's time I saved us. Behind me, Lily looked up from the box she was sorting. She watched me with cautious hope, like someone observing the first sprout pushing through scorched earth. This isn't about revenge, I told Michael, turning back to the desk. It's about justice. I made 3 decisions in rapid succession, the way I triage patients in a mass casualty. I'm calling in sick for the next 3 days. I need to build our case. Michael nodded, already pulling out forms. I'll file for emergency possession. Your father knew this might happen, Gianna. He left everything prepared. Back at the hotel, I found Dr. Sarah Williams waiting in the lobby with 2 suitcases. She said simply, clean scrubs, clothes for both of you, and real shampoo instead of those tiny hotel bottles. I hadn't cried since finding my father's body 2 weeks ago, but Sarah's kindness nearly broke me. Lily's teacher, Miss Bennett, arrived an hour later with schoolwork and a quiet strength that reminded me of my father. Lily's one of our strongest students, she told me privately. And I've documented everything she said about the situation for your records. By evening, the hotel room had transformed from a disaster zone to a command center. Michael had arranged a meeting with the bank manager, who confirmed the trust details and offered a temporary credit line against the home's equity. Your father's foresight was remarkable, the manager told me. The trust is ironclad. The phone rang again, a number I didn't recognize. Gianna? It's Eleanor. My mother's younger sister, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. Eleanor, I said carefully. I know what Marjorie's done. Her voice was tight with anger. She's been planning this since Peter's diagnosis. She told me at Christmas she was going to reclaim her life once he was gone. Why are you telling me this? I asked, confused. Because what she's doing is wrong, Eleanor said simply, and because Tessa's already listed some of your father's medical equipment on Facebook Marketplace. I have screenshots. By midnight, the emergency court filing was submitted. My savings account was nearly depleted from the legal retainer, but for the first time in days, I felt something close to hope. Lily sat on the edge of the hotel bed, stroking Oscar, who had finally emerged from under the desk. I miss Mittens, she said quietly. Her second cat, still trapped in the house. We'll get her back, I promised. And Grandpa's books? Everything, Lily, I promised. She studied my face with that penetrating gaze she inherited from my father. Mom? Yes. The hardest person to stand up to is your mother. She repeated the line from a book we'd read together last summer, but the words carried the weight of ancient wisdom now. I sat beside her, drawing her close. Yes, I said, but not as hard as letting her hurt you. My phone lit up with a text from Michael. The law is unquestionably on your side. Outside, rain tapped against the window, gentler than before. Not washing things away this time, but cleaning them. Making them new. Marjorie's Facebook post appeared on my phone at 3:17 a.m. a week later. I'd been awake anyway, staring at the hotel's ceiling, listening to Lily's gentle breathing from the next bed. Please pray for our family during this difficult time, my mother had written. After Peter's passing, Gianna has chosen to abandon the family home where she was raised. Some grief manifests as rebellion, even in adults. Your support means everything. 27 sympathetic comments already. Hearts and prayer hands from church members who'd known me since childhood. I set the phone down without replying. Documentation, not reaction. That's what Michael had emphasized yesterday. Mom? Lily's voice came from the darkness. You okay? Just checking messages, honey. Go back to sleep. I can't. Mrs. Peterson sent me a weird text. Tessa told her mom I might not be at school because of your mental health issues. The words hit like ice water. Tessa had started spinning stories at Lily's school. By morning, the wolves were circling. Aunt Catherine called while I was in the shower. Uncle Robert while we ate breakfast. Cousin Jennifer during our drive to Michael's office. All of them concerned about my erratic behavior since Dad's death. They're creating a narrative, Michael said, spreading documents across his desk. Marjorie's refusing certified letters. 3 attempts already. I nodded, flipping open my notebook. Tessa's husband Ray followed me into the hospital parking garage last night. Said I was making things harder than they need to be. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Did anyone witness this? Security cameras would have, I said. I've already requested the footage. A smile touched the corner of Michael's mouth. You're getting good at this. The wall calendar behind him showed today's date circled in red. 1 week since the lockout. 1 week since everything changed. My nurses are documenting every minute I spent at the hospital while caring for Dad, I said, tapping my pen against the notebook. Dr. Nichols is preparing a statement about Dad's mental competency when he made the trust changes. The sheriff's office confirmed they'll enforce any court order we receive, Michael added. And I spoke with hospital administration this morning. They're offering their full support. Something unfamiliar flickered in my chest. Not the panic of that first night, not the stunned disbelief of learning Dad had transferred the house to me. Something steadier, calmer. I need my daughter's birth certificate, I said, and Dad's medical files. They're in the filing cabinet in his study. Michael's pen paused mid-note. We can request duplicates through I want the originals. Today, 40 minutes later, I parked 3 houses down from what was legally my home. The cruiser I'd arranged sat quietly at the corner, Officer Banks giving me a subtle nod. The walkway to the front door felt both familiar and foreign. 7 days ago, I'd stood here, soaked to the skin, watching my life unravel. Today, my footsteps sounded different on the concrete. Marjorie answered on the third knock, her face freezing in mid-smile as she registered who stood before her. You're not welcome here, she said, hand gripping the door edge. I pressed record on my phone, holding it visibly. I'm legally requesting my daughter's birth certificate and my father's medical records. Tessa appeared behind Marjorie, her face flushing. We'll call the police if you don't leave. I've already notified them I'd be here. I nodded toward Officer Banks, who'd stepped out of his cruiser. "This is a documented request for my legal property." Marjorie's eyes welled with tears, a familiar tactic that had worked on me countless times before. "After everything I've done for you." When the tears didn't move me, something shifted in her expression. The sadness hardened into something sharper, more dangerous. "You think you can take what's mine?" Her voice cut like glass. "Your father never appreciated me either." Mrs. Daniels watered her flower beds across the street, pretending not to listen. Mr. Wilson slowed his walk, his dog pausing conveniently near our driveway. "The filing cabinet in Dad's study," I repeated. "I'll wait here while you bring the documents." 10 minutes later, I walked back to my car with a manila envelope. Inside was the original birth certificate and a folder containing Dad's medical history. Small victories. Necessary ones. The next morning, Dr. Williams met me in the hospital cafeteria before my shift. "I've completed my statement about your father's care," she said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. 2 years of watching you run yourself ragged, caring for him while working full-time. No jury would question your dedication." Mrs. Bennett, Lily's teacher, called that afternoon. "I've documented Lily's relationship with her grandfather," she said, "how he attended every school function when you were working, how she read to him daily during his illness." By evening, Michael had filed an emergency possession order with 17 signed affidavits. "Eleanor called," he said when I arrived at his office. "Marjorie's been photographing family heirlooms for an estate sale website." I felt my jaw tighten. "Dad's collection? And your grandmother's silver. The antique furniture from the library." The hospital chaplain, Father Morgan, had left a message on my phone. He'd provided a character witness statement about my visits with Dad, the prayers we'd shared, the family Bible I'd brought to his bedside. People were choosing sides. Not the sides Marjorie had anticipated. Thursday brought the shift I'd been waiting for. The judge reviewed our case and expedited the hearing date. "I want to deliver this personally," Michael said, holding up the notice of eviction. His eyes gleamed with something between mischief and justice. I sat in my car across the street, watching as Michael approached the front door in his crisp suit. Marjorie answered, accepting the certified letter with obvious reluctance. Through the windshield, I watched her face as she read the opening lines. The letter trembled in her hands when she reached the declaration, "Property owner, Gianna Reynolds." Tessa appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, lips moving rapidly as she called their attorney. Marjorie didn't move, the papers still clutched in her hands as Michael walked back to his car. For the first time since this began, I saw something besides manipulation in my mother's expression. Understanding. The realization that I wouldn't back down. That evening, Michael spread our documentation across his conference table like a general mapping a battlefield. Court affidavits from 3 of Dad's doctors confirming his mental competency. Trust documents with the ownership transfer timeline highlighted. The photographs I'd taken of our belongings on the curb, rainwater seeping through cardboard, Lily shivering under the porch light. "The calendar is particularly powerful," Michael said, pointing to the color-coded schedule I'd maintained. Green for Dad's appointments, blue for medication changes, red for emergency room visits. 2 years of caretaking condensed into 12 meticulous pages. "And these," he added, tapping the financial records, showing every mortgage payment I'd made. Every utility bill I'd covered while Marjorie spent her widow's pension on bridge club dues and weekend trips to Galveston. "The law doesn't care about feelings," Michael said, gathering the papers into a leather portfolio. "It cares about facts." My phone buzzed as I pulled into the hotel parking lot that evening. A text from Michael, court date moved up. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Lily sat cross-legged on the hotel bed, Oscar purring in her lap, when I told her. "What happens if we lose, Mom?" Her voice sounded so small, nothing like the confident 12-year-old who'd aced her science presentation last month. I sat beside her, running my hand over Oscar's soft fur. "We won't. Your grandfather made sure of that." Later, after Lily fell asleep, I opened the folder I hadn't shown Michael. Inside was a handwritten letter from Dad to the judge, dated 3 weeks before his death, explaining why he'd transferred the house to me instead of his wife of 40 years. His elegant doctor's handwriting filled 3 pages with truths Marjorie never wanted exposed. Tomorrow, the final battle. But tonight, for the first time since the rain-soaked lockout, I slept without waking. The courthouse gleamed like a fortress in the morning sun as I adjusted my blazer. No scrubs today. Today I wasn't Gianna the nurse, but Gianna the plaintiff, fighting for what was rightfully mine. Lily stood beside me, her posture straight despite her trembling hand in mine. "Ready?" Michael Porter asked, his briefcase bulging with our ammunition. I nodded. "We've prepared for this." Inside, the polished floors reflected our determined faces. Courtroom B smelled of furniture polish and nervous sweat. I scanned the room and froze. Marjorie and Tessa, already seated, heads bent in conspiratorial whispers. My mother looked up, her practiced smile faltering when she saw the calm in my eyes. No hysteria. No begging. Just quiet certainty. Michael began arranging documents on our table. "The judge assigned to our case is thorough. She'll appreciate our attention to detail." "Will they make me talk?" Lily whispered, her eyes fixed on Tessa's twin boys slouching in the back row. "Only if you want to," I told her, though Michael had prepared her just in case. Judge Harriet Caldwell entered, her silver hair pulled back severely, eyes missing nothing. "Reynolds family trust dispute, temporary possession hearing," she announced, settling into her chair. Michael rose first, presenting a leather portfolio. "Your Honor, we've prepared a complete timeline documenting Dr. Peter Reynolds' decisions regarding his property." He unfolded charts, dates, signatures, witness statements, irrefutable evidence of my father's intentions. "We have affidavits from 3 separate physicians confirming Dr. Reynolds was of sound mind when he transferred property ownership," Michael continued, placing documents before the judge. "His oncologist, neurologist, and primary care physician of over 2 decades. Michael pulled out financial records next, bank statements demonstrating Mrs. Marjorie Reynolds' minimal financial contributions to household expenses, while Ms. Gianna Reynolds covered property taxes and maintenance costs alongside her father." I noticed Marjorie's attorney shifting uncomfortably. Tessa's face darkened with every new document Michael presented. "Additionally," Michael said, tapping his tablet, "we have video deposition from attorney James Wilson, who prepared the original trust documents." The courtroom screen flickered to life. My father's attorney appeared, gray and dignified. Dr. Reynolds was explicit in his wishes. The property was to transfer to his daughter Gianna and granddaughter Lily's trust upon his death. He had concerns that Mrs. Reynolds might attempt to circumvent his intentions. Marjorie's gasp was audible across the room. Our final witness approaches. Ms. Patricia Hendricks, Lily's school counselor, a woman with unshakable professionalism. "Lily has exhibited significant distress since being forcibly removed from her home," she testified. "Nightmares, anxiety, decreased academic performance. The stability of her home environment was critical following her grandfather's death." I squeezed Lily's hand under the table. She was staring straight ahead, chin raised just like my father's used to be when facing a difficult diagnosis. The judge nodded. "Let's hear from the respondents." Marjorie's attorney rose, Gordon Shaw, expensive suit, artificial smile. "Your Honor, this entire situation stems from a tragic misunderstanding. Mrs. Reynolds had every intention of allowing her daughter and granddaughter to remain in the house temporarily." Marjorie produced a handkerchief, dabbing at invisible tears. "I cared for my husband throughout his illness," she claimed, voice quavering perfectly. "Throughout our marriage, tending to his every need. Gianna was rarely home, always at the hospital." My fingers curled into my palm, nails biting flesh. A lie so blatant it stole my breath. Tessa approached next, armed with photographs. "Here's our family at Christmas," she said, showing images of forced smiles. "And here's Mom helping Dad with his medication." One carefully curated moment caught on camera, ignoring the 100 times I'd found his pills untouched when I returned from shifts. Character witnesses from our church filed forward, people who'd visited for an hour on Sundays. "Gianna was rarely present for church functions," Mrs. Patterson said, avoiding my eyes. "Marjorie was always there, asking for prayers for her husband." praying publicly while neglecting him privately. The lockout was unfortunate, Shaw concluded, but necessary tough love. Gianna has become increasingly dependent at her age. Judge Caldwell's expression revealed nothing as she made notes. For one terrible moment, I saw doubt in her eyes. My turn came. I rose slowly, channeling every ounce of professional composure I'd developed in emergency rooms. Your Honor, I moved home 2 years ago specifically to care for my father during his illness. I began, my voice steady. I coordinated my hospital shifts around his care needs. Michael presented my work schedules alongside my father's treatment calendars, showing how I'd arranged everything around being home when he needed me most. The courtroom door opened. A familiar figure slipped in, Marjorie's sister, Eleanor, whom I hadn't seen since the funeral. Marjorie's face contorted in surprise. Miss Eleanor Blackwell has requested to provide testimony, Michael announced. Eleanor walked forward. I visited my brother-in-law weekly during his illness, she stated firmly. On numerous occasions, I found him alone while my sister was at social engagements. It was Gianna who adjusted his medications, prepared his meals, and ensured his comfort. Marjorie half rose before her attorney pulled her back down. Michael produced a sealed envelope. Your Honor, Dr. Reynolds anticipated potential disputes. He prepared this letter to be presented to the court if necessary. The judge broke the seal, reading silently. Her eyebrows rose. Mom? Lily's voice broke the tension. Can I say something? Judge Caldwell softened. Come forward, young lady. Lily walked to the stand, her school uniform impeccable. My grandfather taught me chess in his study every Sunday afternoon, she began. Even when he was really sick, he told me the house would always be there for Mom and me, that he'd made sure of it. He said Grandma didn't appreciate what she had. Tears built in my eyes, but I blinked them back. Dignity, not drama, would win this fight. I just want to go home, Lily finished simply. I could have launched into details about Marjorie's neglect. Instead, I said, the documented evidence speaks for itself, Your Honor. Marjorie stood abruptly. She manipulated her dying father, she shouted, pointing at me. Peter wasn't thinking clearly. Mrs. Reynolds, control yourself, Judge Caldwell warned. During the recess, Michael stepped into the hallway. Tessa's husband Ray followed him. A security camera captured Ray's threatening whisper, "You'll regret taking this case." Back in session, Marjorie's attorney challenged the trust documents. His argument backfired when it became clear they'd known about the trust for months. Their signatures were on file. Mrs. Reynolds, these medical records indicate you attended only 3 of your husband's 27 oncology appointments, Judge Caldwell observed. Is that correct? Marjorie fumbled for an explanation. Tessa leaned toward her attorney, whispering urgently. I caught fragments. Already spoke with the agent about listing. The judge's head snapped up. What agent would that be, Mrs. Peterson? Tessa blanched, realizing her mistake. A reporter sat in the back row. Marjorie approached him during the next break. My ungrateful daughter abandoned her father and now wants to steal my home. My colleagues from Austin General filed into the courtroom, a silent wall of support. Judge Caldwell closed her folder with finality. I am granting temporary possession of the property to Gianna Reynolds and Lily Reynolds. Effective immediately. The Sheriff's Department will escort Mrs. Marjorie Reynolds and Mrs. Tessa Peterson from the property by 5 p.m. today. Final hearing is set for 3 weeks from now. Marjorie collapsed back in her chair, her performance finally faltering. Outside the courtroom, her attorney approached Michael. We should discuss settlement terms. I shook my head. We're past the point of negotiation. In the hallway, Tessa and Ray argued loudly. You said this would be easy, he snapped. Now where are we supposed to live? I led Lily toward the exit. The sunlight outside felt different, somehow cleaner, brighter. Is it over? Lily asked, looking up with cautious hope. Almost, I told her. Keys already in hand. We're going home. The phone rang at 7:15 a.m. I stared at the caller ID, my thumb hovering over the screen. Mother. 3 days before the final hearing. Gianna, Marjorie's voice quavered when I answered. I didn't sleep all night thinking about this situation. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. I'm still your mother. Her voice broke. Family should come first. You know that's what your father would want. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. Dad made his wishes very clear in the trust documents. People are talking, Gianna. The whole church is praying for reconciliation. The wobble in her voice hardened. Pastor Williams called yesterday. He reminded me that Christian forgiveness requires reconciliation. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Uncle Robert, we need to find a compromise before Thursday. This is tearing the family apart. Tessa's boys are devastated, Marjorie continued. They've already moved their things into the upstairs bedrooms. Now they have to pack again. Those rooms never belonged to them, I said quietly. We could share the house, Marjorie pressed. You and Lily take the main bedroom and study. We'll take the guest room and den. Common areas can be. No. The word fell between us like a stone. You're being cruel, Gianna. Her voice sharpened. What happened to the daughter who nursed her father for 2 years? Who put everyone else first? She got locked out in the rain, I said, and ended the call as another text arrived. I set my phone face down on the counter, my hands trembling slightly. Mom? Lily stood in the doorway, Oscar winding around her legs. Was that Grandma again? Yes, honey. I forced a smile. Nothing important. Michael called an hour later. Marjorie's attorney filed a motion this morning. They're requesting a mental health evaluation, claiming your grief has impaired your judgment. My stomach clenched. Can they do that? It's a delay tactic, Michael said. But the hospital called me too. Someone filed an anonymous complaint questioning your professional stability. F. The word struck like physical blows. 2 years of night shifts while managing Dad's care. Never missing a medication schedule. Documenting every treatment. The school principal left a message. I told him. Apparently, Tessa's been telling parents that Lily's not doing well in our temporary situation. I glanced toward Lily's room, where she was quietly reading. Michael, am I being too harsh? Should I consider some kind of no? Michael cut in. Remember what your father wrote in his letter to the judge. Marjorie has never appreciated boundaries, which is why I've drawn this one so clearly. Stay the course, Gianna. Wednesday morning, the day before the final hearing, my phone rang as I was preparing Lily's lunch. Miss Reynolds, this is Janet from the clerk's office. We can't locate your documentation folder for tomorrow's hearing. Cold dread washed through me. What? All our evidence was submitted last week. It's not showing in the system. We need these documents by noon, or the judge may grant another continuance. I called Michael immediately. His assistant answered. He's in court until 11. What's happening? I explained the situation as I raced to the hotel desk for the backup flash drive. I saved copies of everything, but we'll need to reprint all the affidavits and get them notarized again. I'll meet you at the office in 20 minutes, she promised. I turned to find Lily watching me, backpack in hand. You're going to be late for school. Grandpa's tablet, she said suddenly. The blue one. He backed up all his important papers to the cloud. The password is your birthday. 3 hours of frantic work. Michael requested a delay when he finished his other case. The judge granted us exactly 90 minutes. We made it by 11 minutes, Michael said, collapsing into a chair as the clerk stamped our reconstituted evidence folder. Someone deliberately misplaced our files. Just one more day, I whispered. Thursday morning dawned clear and cool. I stood by the mailbox at 9:27 a.m., watching the sheriff's department vehicles pull into the driveway. 2 deputies in crisp uniforms approached the front door while another positioned himself near the garage. Michael stood beside me, legal briefcase in hand. Are you ready for this? I nodded, unable to speak. In the car, Lily sat clutching a framed photo of my father, her face solemn. The lead deputy knocked firmly. Sheriff's Department, open the door, please. Tessa answered, her face flushed. What's the meaning of this? The deputy held up an official document. I have a writ of possession to execute. Are you Marjorie Reynolds? I'll get my mother, Tessa said, her voice tight. Marjorie appeared moments later, hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. I need to see that order. I'm not letting strangers into my home. Ma'am, I'm required by law to read this aloud. Then you'll have 20 minutes to collect essential personal belongings under supervision. As the deputy read the court order, Marjorie's eyes found mine across the lawn. The hatred in them was palpable. You have 20 minutes, the deputy concluded. We will accompany you to ensure only personal belongings are removed. I remained by the mailbox as deputies entered with Marjorie and Tessa. Michael activated the recording feature on his phone, documenting the entire process. Inside, I heard Marjorie's voice rising in protest. Those are family heirlooms. They belong to my husband's mother. Ma'am, we have an inventory list provided by the court. Those items are specifically listed as property of the trust. I closed my eyes, remembering the meticulous room-by-room inventory I'd created before moving back. Every photograph, every book, every piece of silver documented with my father's signature. A deputy emerged, carrying a cat carrier. Found this little guy hiding under a bed. Seems a bit malnourished. Oscar's plaintive meow made my throat tighten. I took the carrier to Lily, who opened the door immediately, tears streaming down her face. He's so skinny, Mom, she whispered, fingers gently stroking his fur through the grate. The minutes ticked by. Deputies carried out boxes of clothing and personal items, checking each against the inventory. I heard Marjorie's voice rising again, then Tessa's husband Ray, deeper tones, joining the argument. Sir, step back now, came a deputy's firm command. Threatening language will not be tolerated. 17 minutes after entering, Marjorie emerged on the porch, clutching her purse. Tessa followed with a small suitcase. You'll regret this, Marjorie said, her voice carrying across the lawn. When you need family most, remember this moment. I met her gaze steadily. You already taught me how regret feels, standing in the rain with my daughter. The lead deputy approached with a clipboard. Miss Reynolds, we've completed the formal transfer of possession. There are several items missing from the inventory. We've documented everything for your attorney. He handed me a ring of keys, house keys, garage keys, the physical symbols of what had always been rightfully mine. Your father's medical equipment was improperly stored in the basement, the deputy added quietly. Some damage appears deliberate. We've photographed everything. Marjorie walked stiffly to her car without looking back. Tessa paused at the bottom of the driveway, something like recognition flickering across her face before she turned away. Ray glared at me from their SUV until a deputy pointedly approached his window. Two vehicles pulled away in opposite directions. Neighbors who had gathered on porches and behind curtains slowly dispersed, witnesses to justice rather than drama. My phone buzzed with incoming messages. Uncle Robert, we had no idea things were this bad. Call if you need anything. The security system is reset with your code, Michael said, tucking his phone away. I filed for a restraining order as a precaution. Lily climbed out of the car, still holding her grandfather's photograph. She approached the porch steps slowly, as if unsure whether they might disappear beneath her feet. I stood in the doorway, keys in hand. Victory should have felt triumphant, but there was only a somber stillness, a household reclaimed, a boundary restored. As Michael drove away, I noticed a white envelope in the mailbox, my mother's handwriting instantly recognizable. I slipped it into my pocket unopened. Some letters could wait for another day. The rain falls differently now, 6 months later. I stand at the kitchen window, watching droplets track down the glass, remembering that night when Lily and I stood drenched on the porch, locked out of our own lives. Dad's study remains untouched, a shrine of sorts. His medical journals line the shelves, his reading glasses rest on the desk. The only change is the small wooden plaque Lily made, Dr. Peter Reynolds Memorial Reading Room. Sometimes I sit in his chair, breathe in what's left of him, and read his journals. Not because I must, but because I want to. Lily's garden flourishes in the backyard, despite the autumn chill. The Peace Project, she calls it. Rows of hardy mums and late-season vegetables, each plant tagged with careful handwriting. She tends it daily with a dedication that reminds me of her grandfather. The promotion letter from Austin Memorial sits framed on my desk, nursing supervisor, emergency services. Dr. Williams insisted I accept it. Your father would be proud, she'd said, squeezing my hand. And you've earned it. I'd cried then, the first tears I'd allowed myself since the eviction. The new security system hums quietly in the background. 6 cameras, motion sensors, reinforced locks. Not from fear, but from a promise to never again be vulnerable. Mom? Lily's voice floats from the front porch. Come watch the rain with me. I pour 2 mugs of chamomile tea and join her. We sit in matching rocking chairs, just as we did on countless evenings with Dad before his illness took him. The rain falls steadily, turning our yard into a glistening canvas. It's raining just like that day, Lily says softly, fingers wrapped around her mug. She's grown taller these past months, her face losing some of its childish roundness. The trauma aged her, but the healing has given her a quiet strength. Yes, I say, watching water sheet off the new porch roof. Same weather, different feeling. Lily rocks gently, her eyes tracking the rainfall. This is our home now, she says, not a question, but a statement of hard-won truth. I reach across the space between us, squeezing her hand. It always was. The rain that once symbolized our rejection now sounds like a lullaby, nature's percussion, accompanying our evening ritual. Later, I sit at my desk, my journal open before me. Therapy homework, technically. But it's become more than that. Tonight's prompt stares up at me. How has your definition of strength changed? My pen hovers, then begins to move. Strength isn't just endurance. For so long I thought being strong meant carrying everyone's burdens, never complaining, always saying yes. I confused sacrifice with love. But real strength knows when to draw lines, when to say no, when to protect what matters most. The hospital committee invitation sits unanswered beside my journal. 6 months ago, I would have accepted immediately, stretching myself thinner in the name of dedication. Now, I see the request differently. Time with Lily is not negotiable. Some boundaries aren't betrayal, they're preservation. I glance at the framed quote on my wall. Dad's handwriting, familiar as my own. Strength isn't carrying everything, it's knowing what to put down. Oscar, now healthy and plump, jumps onto the desk and settles on my journal. His purr vibrates against my hand. Another small victory. The cat who once cowered during those hotel weeks now sprawls with confident abandon. Last night, Lily slept through until morning. No nightmares, no anxious midnight calls. The first time since the lockout, I'd stood in her doorway at dawn, watching her peaceful breathing, and felt something tight inside me finally release. Dad's medical equipment, the hospital bed, the oxygen concentrator, has found new purpose. The donation to Austin Community Clinic came with a single condition, a plaque honoring Dr. Peter Reynolds. Service transformed into legacy. Friday movie nights have become a sacred ritual, just Lily and me on the sofa, bowls of popcorn balanced on our laps, Oscar wedged between us. The family we've chosen, small but mighty. At the hospital, Jessica, a young nurse with haunted eyes, sought me out last week. My mother keeps taking my paycheck, she'd whispered. Says I owe her for raising me. I'd recognized the shame in her voice, the confusion of obligation twisted into exploitation. Let me share something I learned the hard way, I'd told her, pulling out the caregiver rights guide I'd created. 20 pages of resources, legal protections, and boundary scripts. The project that grew from our pain, now helping others navigate their own. Lily's school presentation, What Makes a Home, won first place last month. Her teacher called it surprisingly mature. On the final slide, Lily had written, "A home isn't just walls and a roof. It's a place where you're safe to be yourself." The spare bedroom that once collected dust now hosts Sarah, a traveling nurse whose apartment flooded last week. The same colleague who brought us clothes during those first desperate hotel nights. Circles completing themselves. My phone chimes with a notification. A Facebook post from Tessa showing her and Marjorie arguing over furniture at an estate sale. The comments section brims with their public drama. I quietly block both accounts. Eleanor's message arrived yesterday, tentative, hopeful. Maybe it's time for healing? She'd written, "Family should find its way back together." My response took hours to craft. "Eleanor, I value your place in our lives, but reconciliation requires acknowledgement and change. Neither has happened. My door remains open to you, But my boundaries with Marjorie and Tessa are not negotiable. The unopened letter from Marjorie sat in my desk drawer for months. I finally read it last night. 5 pages of justifications, selective memories, and subtle blame. No apology. I filed it away without response, choosing peace over the exhaustion of engagement. The rain intensifies as evening deepens. Lily brings her watercolors to the porch, capturing the glistening yard in blues and purples. I watch her work, struck by how her fingers move with certainty across the paper. Wind stirs the chimes hanging from the eave, the ones Lily and I made from Dad's medical alert tags. They catch the light from the porch lamp, sending gentle music into the damp air. Some storms wash things away, I say, watching raindrops catch in Lily's hair. Others help things grow. Lily looks up, brush poised mid-stroke. I like this storm better. The security light flickers on as dusk settles, illuminating the handmade sign at the end of our driveway, Reynolds Residence. Not a declaration of ownership, but of presence. Of persistence. Have you ever had to choose between family peace and your well-being? What boundaries did you need to set to protect what matters most?